All right. Hey YouTube, I'm Lucky, and in today's video, we're going to be covering the top 10 meta weapons for each slot in the game right now. Obviously, this is for PvP. Now we're going over the kinetic, the energy, and the power ammo slot. Recently, we just had Bungie do some huge sandbox changes. It mixed things up quite a bit. Did some nerfs to the Dead Man's Tail, the 120s, the shotguns, etc. So things are changing rapidly. But as time goes on, we start to fit in what the meta is currently. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the top charts. Right now, in the kinetic slot, we have the Chaperone is the number one most used weapon, which I talked about before. And these are all kinetic only. The Ace of Spades, the number two most used weapon, they're tied with 17% usage. So clearly a back and forth between either using the exotic on Chaperone or using your exotic on Ace of Spades. Obviously, you get one or the other. And then the last word is in third place currently. Obviously, a little bit more potent on controller, in my opinion. It's at 10% total. And going down, we have the Bastion, which I talked about. Bastion is the would be the second one that comes up as a special ammo weapon in the kinetic slot. The number 5 is the Dire Promise, a 140 RPM legendary, and this would be the first legendary on the entire slot. So that's pretty cool to see there. Some of the god rolls of Dire Promise, in my opinion, I think is Snapshot Rangefinder. That's the one I use at least. I have a really nasty god roll of the Dire Promise, so maybe I'll bring you some gameplay with that pretty soon here, show you how amazing that weapon is. Really good, especially if you want to use aerial movement, because you'll notice on all these exotics, you can't possibly put on a, Icarus mod on them, so keep that in mind. So that's why Dire Promise is up as high as it is, in my opinion. Number 6 goes to Thorn in the kinetic slot. No surprises there. Thorn, such a beast weapon, so very strong, especially when you get those little orbs picked up. Start doing those damage boosts to those ticks, that damage over time boost. Then we have the Messenger, so we have some real diversity here. Got a pulse rifle in here now, and Messenger obviously is super strong, super potent. Next up, we have the Steady Hand, so the 120 RPM still hanging in there, and the number 8 slot, Steady Hand, has fallen to at this point in time. And then we have the Fatebringer, so another 140 RPM. Very comparable to the Dire Promise. Obviously, some pretty different roles overall. I do think that the Fatebringer has much better base stats than the Dire Promise, but I think that the perk selection for Dire Promise is better. We'll see if those charts switch with time and we see the Fatebringer rise up above the Dire Promise. Obviously, the Dire Promise has been around for a long time, so a lot more people probably have a god roll of it. And not to mention, we still haven't even seen what the Time Lost Fatebringer is going to be like in PvP, so that might very well be a much better option than the Dire Promise. And then the number 10 spot is the Riz Walker, so that legendary kinetic shotgun from Iron Banner, that 80 RPM. So some pretty interesting selections there. If you haven't been using these weapons and you're trying to go flawless in trials, I would highly recommend using the meta, as I've always recommended to people. Unless you really want to do something different, feel free to go for that. You can play however you want. If you're not playing trials, of course, you don't need to use the meta Destiny to a much more, just casual, more chill game. You can chill and relax and control and clash a little bit more. In the energy slot, we have the Felwinter's Lie, still taking the number 1 slot with 20%. Wow, people just can't let go of that Felwinter's Lie. Such a potent weapon. And even though it's been nerfed pretty significantly now, with both the quick draw, nerf being removed from it as well, and then on top of that, now the recent changes, still Felwinter's Lie hangs in there. Pretty crazy stuff there. The Adored Sniper is up there as well. No surprises there. That comes with pretty much a god roll and one of the best low zoom snipers in the game, so easily no surprises with the Adored being up there. Number 3 goes to the Palindrome. Very interesting. We got a 140 RPM hand cannon. The 140 is really making the rise now. 120s have almost fallen completely into irrelevancy, and now the 140s, it's a 140 meta from what it would seem like. The Ignis Hammer, however, is number 4 slot. We got that 120 hanging in there, and it's actually the Adept version of that. Keep in mind, that's pretty cool. Number 5 goes to the Frozen Orbit Sniper, so you got that high impact Crucible Sniper. Some really crazy rolls on that. I'm not too surprised to see that there. I personally think that the Frozen Orbit is better than the Adored. However, getting that god rolled Frozen Orbit is so much more difficult, which is probably why the Adored is higher in percentage usage, because Frozen Orbit is almost across the board better than the Adored, but it's very hard to get that roll. I literally don't even have the right roll that I'm looking for. I've been searching forever for it. And Shayura's Wrath, so we've got the Trials SMG is actually hanging in there in the number 6 spot. Very interesting to see an SMG. Some real meta changes, some real sandbox changes. Seen some SMGs this high up the charts. Number 7 goes to the Ignis Hammer, another 120 RPM. Obviously, you can see that we got the Adept one up there, so the regular beat on there is not too big of a surprise. Bound Verdict still hanging in there. Another aggressive frame shotgun still hanging in the energy slot. Wow, pretty interesting there. And the Glacial Chasm Fusion Rifle, making it into the top 10 as the number 9 energy spot. Very interesting. And the duality, we got a shotgun there, exotic shotgun duality, in the number 10 spot for the energy. So that is the meta for the kinetic and the energy slot. Obviously, you can't pair all of these weapons together because some are exotics. You can only equip one exotic, but you can see how you could synergize a really good meta loadout between the two of these. You know what I'm saying? You could throw on the Chaperone, which is the number 1 most used kinetic weapon, and then along with that, you could go down to the Palindrome Adept, and you would be using a hard meta loadout between the Chaperone and the Adept Palindrome, because that is literally the number 1 and the number 3 most used weapon. So that build right there is easily one of the strongest builds currently in Destiny 2 if you're really trying to succeed in trials or whatever place you're trying to put up crazy numbers. You'll definitely find success with a build like that. Lastly, I will go over the power weapon options just briefly though, because I really don't think that power weapon has too much effect on the meta right now. You just don't get power ammo consistently or often enough for it to really matter or be impactful to the game. Of course, though, we do have Wardcliff Coil in the number 1 slot. I'm a little bit surprised that we don't see Heir Apparent there, because Heir Apparent, it literally turns you into a raid boss and is so ridiculously OP. But Heir Apparent is the number 2. Number 3 is Black Talon. Obviously, people are still 3-peaking, but even if you don't 3-peak, Black Talon is actually a pretty strong exotic weapon to use. So I'm not going to entirely say it's all because of 3-peaking. Tomorrow's Answer, you've got the Trials Rocket there, number 4 spot. 5 is the Corrective Measure, so we've got the Vault of Glass machine gun there. 6, the Memory Interdict. I told you it was meta. I told you. With time, you're going to see more and more people use this thing too. You get the right roll of the Memory Interdict, this thing is insane. You know what? And you know what? The Karens in the comments were trying to tell me that this thing is actually not good. And I am laughing right now. And you should all laugh with me, because literally it is the number 6 most used power weapon globally. So it is without a doubt meta. Is very, very strong weapon. Soul Scar Adept, the Trial Sword, is the number 7. That is because of 3-peaking. I'm gonna be completely honest. That is because people are just 3-peaking with it. People are definitely not using that thing a ton. It's good, it's okay, but it's not like the weapon of choice for power weapons, in my opinion. Memory Interdict is infinitely better than Soul Scar. Then we have the Tomorrow's Answer Adept. All right, the Trials Rocket Adept, and then the Blast Batu, which is very comparable to the Memory Interdict. Probably was the grenade launcher of choice before the Memory Interdict came into the game, but Memory Interdict outclasses it in every way now. So that's why it's a number 6 for Memory Interdict, and Blast Batu is number 9. And then the last power ammo weapon is the Hazen Vengeance. So there you have it. That's the Vault of Glass rocket right there. So there it is. That's the top 10 meta guns in Destiny 2 right now. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this video. What weapons are you using when you're playing Crucible, especially when it counts, like in Trials of Osiris? What is your go-to build? What are your go-to weapons? What are you slaying with right now in PvP? And what changes do you expect will come to the meta in the future? If you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe with notifications on, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.